Happy Wednesday. It's another Imperfect Action live stream. If you are wondering exactly what you're watching, that's what it is. It's the Imperfect Action live stream. Why do I call it the Imperfect Action live stream? Because I have seen too many people that just wait around for the perfect time to do anything. And just a spoiler alert, there is no such thing as a perfect time. So just do it. Just take the action. Who am I? I am Rob Fenstermaker, former corporate burnout survivor turned kingdom builder. You're a kingdom builder. I help you get out of the rut of life, start getting into action, start creating that dream life you thought was impossible. That's what I do. Got a couple events coming up this week as well. We got the virtual Friday whiskey hour. Some people have asked, why don't I like to drink whiskey? Hey, guess what? There's no requirement to drink whiskey. Just show up and enjoy the conversation. Bring your favorite beverage. Maybe it's whiskey, maybe it's wine, maybe it's beer, maybe you just want to bring a glass of water. Mike, you've been to the virtual Friday whiskey hour, correct?
I certainly have. It's a
Yes, you
fantastic
have.
opportunity to,
And it's
get a
a
little tipsy and talk shop.
That's right. That's right. You just talk a little shop, make some of those connections. Next Tuesday is the Iron Sharpens Iron community, where again, we just come together, have all that at 11 o'clock on Tuesday. We just come together, just bring people together, have a conversation as we hold each other accountable to live that life that we want to live. But it's my pleasure and my honor to introduce today's guest, Mike Verret, who will fix your pitch. He's the CPO of Fix Your Pitch. And Mike's done a few different things in life. He was the face of Hasbro at one point in his life. You know what? Back in my college days, I used to be the face of Anheuser-Busch. One semester, living in my fraternity house, one of the guys there was the college campus rep for Anheuser-Busch at the Ohio State University. You're not a true Buckeye if you don't emphasize the when you say Ohio State University.
There's no sense in
And so
saying
he
it.
asked, there's no sense. There's no sense. So what did I do? I got to be the Bud Man. You know, the Bud Man, he'd wear the thing with the cape. And I was also Spuds McKenzie. If you remember back in the 80s when
Nice.
Spuds McKenzie was a thing.
That was
And I got
Stroh's,
paid. But
right?
you know how he
Stroh's
paid
or
me? He
Coors?
paid me with 2 cases of Budweiser each time I did that. When you're a college student, Budweiser is the cream of the crop when it came to beer. So I would get paid 2 cases of Budweiser to go to different events dressed as Spuds McKenzie or Bud Man.
Well, I got paid a little bit more than 2 cases of beer, but my job, it was not face of Hasbro. I believe Mr. Monopoly has that monopolized, or
Okay.
Optimus Prime. No, face of Hasbro Games. And my
Okay.
job was to go to all the industry events around the world and
Yeah.
walk with our buyers. We have 400 games, they have 6 minutes. They need to feel what we're going to do about driving sales and driving that business. They already know how much they cost, how big they are, how many they could fit on
Yeah.
the shelf.
Uh,
Ultimately, what they need to feel is how we're going to drive it and the benefit to them. So my job is to connect with them up front and put an idea in their head, exacerbate the thinking on that idea throughout 5.5 minutes, and then tie it back
okay.
with the benefits to the first thing we said. I was good at that, so that's what I did. And I
Okay.
got to go around the world every year: Hong Kong, India, the UK, Germany. It was great.
Oh, yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So, you see some of these games come and go, and some people create these games.
I know
So
a
when you,
lot
when
of
you
them.
bring a new game, yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot. So you're just. I mean, Monopoly's the mainstay of Hasbro. That's the
Yeah,
mainstay. But they've
yes,
also
without
more.
a doubt. That is,
They've also changed how they present that game.
they have changed it a number of times. They're trying to innovate on something that people buy once for $15, keep for 20 years, and replace the thimble with a real thimble. The game's business is actually really challenging for two reasons. One, everybody can make games. Not everybody can make action figures, but anybody. I mean, think about Cards Against Humanity. That just came from a Kickstarter campaign, and it's easy
Yeah.
because it's printed materials. Um, but the other issue is if it's not a frequency or luxury purchase, that's what games represent. You buy them
Yeah.
once, you don't buy them over and over again. So
Yeah.
bringing newness to something like that is really challenging all the time. I mean, you've got new competition coming up. You've got old institutionalized way of thinking about monopoly, and it's $15 a unit and you sell each unit once. Each product gets sold to one customer once. So that's a
Yeah.
challenge to overcome.
But they've done a good job with licensing. I mentioned the Ohio State University. I remember going. I get to at least one game a year, so I always stop by, some of the gift shops there, and I've
Yeah.
seen, Buckeye Monopoly. My
Yep.
wife and I were big Disney fans. I've seen Disney Monopoly, so they've done a good job of licensing.
Oh
Because
yeah.
if you're a Disney fan, you've got to have that Disney Monopoly. If you're an Ohio State fan, or excuse me, if you're a fan of the Ohio State University, you've got to buy that Buckeye Monopoly. You have to. It's just
Without a
part of
doubt.
the deal.
The problem is licensing costs money.
Yeah.
Right. So your profit margin is eroded by, let's say, Disney wants 12 points, wants 12%. That takes a lot out of what you can do with a game. Okay. But thinking completely differently, insights about Monopoly leads to some pretty interesting places. The most recent one, and before I left Hasbro, this is something I had a chance to work on a little bit. Somebody on the team came up with an insight to develop a new concept. It was a BuzzFeed poll that suggests or shows 50% of people cheat when they play Monopoly, and the other 50% don't and catch the cheaters. So with that insight, the director, Kate Martino, gets up in front of the C-suite, the amphitheater, 65 people sat there in a horseshoe. And the first thing she puts on the 3 slides, first thing she puts up is a screenshot of that poll. For 5 minutes, everybody in the room, right up to the CEO, talked about either cheating or catching someone. Slide 2 introduced Cheaters Edition Monopoly, where you try to get away with cheating. And if you get caught, we added an 18-inch handcuff to the go to jail space just to emphasize the capture. Sold hundreds of thousands of units, all brand new, and all based on we own it, it's our IP, and it's our execution of it. The third slide was just how we're going to launch it. And that was it.
Yeah.
Shows an effectiveness in communication, but the importance of a clear insight as well.
Yeah, I love the game Monopoly. And what I love most about it is the wheeling and dealing. And I will trade some of my properties. I got to get the boardwalk. I got to get boardwalk and Park Place. I will trade on my properties to get that, and then just spend everything I have to get to the hotel on there.
Oh yeah.
And then once you do that, game over. It's game over at that point.
That's
you're
right.
just
That's
waiting everybody out.
monopolization. I believe it's the point of the game.
That's it. You're just bleeding everybody out at that point.
Yes.
But yeah. So what brings us to, it's all about perspective. And I know you love to work with people to refine their pitch. And sometimes pitch can be a dirty word with people. They don't pitch slap me. But you know what? If you're in business, you got to know what you're doing, and you've got to be able to articulate it effectively. And I've seen some people that they're horrible at it, and I've seen people that are fantastic at it.
Mm-hmm. I think the one challenge that everybody runs into is thinking about a pitch as selling themselves and their business, right? Yeah. There's no business without show business. We're playing a role whether we want to be or not. And we don't think the same way as we do in the outside world. We don't use the same terminology. If I ever said to you, "Oh, I like your glasses. Did you acquire those via an e-commerce platform?" You'd think I'm nuts. I'd say, "Did you buy them online?" But in business, that's not how they say it. They use words like ideate and synergize. We don't do that in the real world. So what happens is pitches tend to get constructed from the internal perspective. What I see matters, and this is what I have to tell them. And the first thing you'll notice with someone who has that sort of perspective is they lead with either their solution or their services every time. Okay. Because they are ready to talk about those things. That's what they know best. Their perspective is, I have the solution and here's all the tools I have to do it. But that's flawed because that's not how the outside world looks at it. They have a completely different perspective than you. And I compare it to a goldfish in a fishbowl. From the outside, the audience of the fishbowl, we see this beautiful orange fish swimming in circles and reversing direction. But if you're the fish, if your business is the fish, you are swimming in circles, you're underwater and the glass is warped. You can't see the outside world for what it is. Your perspective is warped. And that is never more demonstrable than when an author writes a book. I always use Stephen King, but every author uses this practice. Every word of 400 pages is important to Stephen King. He can't write the blurb, the sales pitch, because of it. Everything will get in the way. He cannot get to 3 paragraphs that are the right 3 paragraphs. paragraphs. The simple solution is to give it to someone else to read, and they can write it in 10 minutes. It's because it's not their words. They take away what's truly important that the words have assembled and come together as, and they're able to write those 3 paragraphs in their sleep. That is what we all run into. How do you get out of your own way? And unfortunately, if we think about services and landing clients, what it leads us to in the networking world, our perspective is I have to tell them what I do, and they'll instantly know to call me, or they'll instantly know someone to refer me to. In my experience, that distillation from the business perspective ends up being one of 2 things. One, they're reciting their business card. Hi, my name's Mike. My business is Verret Associates. I repair people's pitches by doing this. If you want to get in touch, here's how. Business card recital. The other one is the I help statement, where everybody helps somebody, right? I call it story brand Mad Libs. They took the first page out of this brilliant program and just filled in the blanks for I help business A, going through challenge B, accomplish goal C by providing solution D that works like E and benefits are F. They just fill it in and put it on their LinkedIn profile or say it. It is a run-on sentence, and I haven't had a chance to grab onto anything. People don't think that way, though. They think that's exactly how you're supposed to pitch. And the truth is, coming back to this interaction, you keep using the word conversation. That's what a pitch should be. It should be, it's a one-way conversation, but the audience should perceive it as a conversation. You want their perspective to be, I'm talking through this, not, oh man, pitch slapped again, right? So focusing on the outside world when you know everything is hard, but there are 3 things that I communicate that are imperative. The first is you have to be first, best, or different. You need to stand out as one of those 3 things to me. And a great example of that, first and best, hard to come by, but different is easy, especially if it attaches to your motivation. It stands out in your mind, not what you need, why you need it. Okay. So think about scrolling social media. Your thumb's going like this, then it stops on something. Why? It's because it suited what you were looking for in that time. You scanned over a bunch of stuff that didn't fit the mold, and then you found it and your thumb tapped it. That is motivation. That's how it works. The solution was what you tapped because it connected to your motivation. That is the most important first step for businesses to stand out as different, and they constantly miss it. The second thing that is missed quite often is your audience and what they're going through. Communicating that effectively is important so everybody can grab onto it. But what most businesses or people like me do, that is buried in my about me section more often than not. In fact, second paragraph is where I find it for a lot of my clients, where it truly is this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, because this is what I saw and it led me to this solution. It's buried there so that they could lead with their solution and then services. So that becomes a big uphill battle if you don't connect them and make them feel it. And the last thing
people don't care about you. They care about themselves, and it's not a selfish thing to say. They care about themselves.
Why the hell would
they know what's going
on.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And the last thing is people are trying to solve it first, and second of all, with this long solution or convoluted, like I make your dreams come true, or make your dreams a reality. Like that's not the right way to think about it. It has to be get my attention, make me feel what I'm going through so I know I'm in the right spot, and offer me a lifeline, a solution in a sentence or a headline. If you can do that, those are the first 3 things an audience needs to hear. And it's
you got to create that hook. You got to create that hook. You got to hook them.
You got to get me to stop on you out of all of the choices I have. If you need a plumber, you go on Google, plumber near me. First 3 results, where a plumber will be there in 10 minutes. One of them is speaking to your motivation. Water's on the floor, time stands still. It's not like a light bulb, fix it on Saturday. It needs to stop now. The person who said they could be here in 10 minutes is the one I'm going to click on.
Yes.
That's how it works.
That's it exactly. And it's understanding that pain point that that your potential client has. And you know, the other thing I've seen people do as well, which I think is even worse, is they try and be everything to everyone. Just
That's
that
almost what I mean by make your dreams a
yeah,
reality. Like,
yeah.
the
They
hell
try
does
and
that
be
mean?
everything to everyone,
Mhm.
and to me, if you're trying to please everyone with what you're trying to do, you're pleasing no one. You're literally pleasing no one.
Yep. And it also leads you to completely over communicate and under specify. You can't go into this world with a bunch of insights and have seven or eight different solutions for them and messages for them. You can't do that. You have one business, and you need to get people attached to what you mean to them on their
Yeah.
terms. You know what you mean to them, but you can't just, hey, I have all the answers to your problems. But
Yeah.
if you try to be everything to everybody, that's multiple insights, it's multiple challenges they're trying to think about and overcome. And frankly, it leads them in a bunch of different directions that aren't going to help them at all.
Yeah. So what you're talking about, you're seeing a lot of people. You got the selling versus buying pitch. So when you say that, when you the selling pitch is, it's all about me. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. Um, and but converting that potential client with your pitch into somebody that's going to buy your service, product, whatever it is you're selling. What's the time that you need? Or there's got to be a quick time. You said scrolling, but if you're at a networking event and you're speaking with somebody, what's the amount of time that you have to really get somebody's attention?
To get their attention, 3 seconds.
Yeah, 3 seconds.
And then from there, if you can't accomplish it within 57 seconds, you're not doing it. The rest of it within 57 seconds, you're not doing it right. Selling versus buying approach, think quantity is sales and quality is buyer side, okay? Selling, buying. Quantity means if you're selling, you are going to be governed by numbers. I have to talk to this many
Yeah.
people to get a sale. Reason being, your pitch isn't effective. It sounds like every other person's selling what you have. So you are
Yeah.
selling upstream constantly. But if every 50 calls you make, you land a deal, there's motivation in that for you, you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
However, you're getting lucky. And that number should be a hell of a lot higher with a hell of a lot fewer calls. Reason being, quality is what they're looking for. Quality of communication, quality of solving my problem is all
Mhm.
based on what they see at this point. You know, I mean, Amazon early on figured a way to destroy brand power by introducing ratings and reviews. I mean, you don't trust the brand, you see what these other people said, right? And then maybe reach
I'll
out to
go. Yes.
someone you know who has it as a final opinion. But people can find and buy whatever they want or need. And in most cases, the brand doesn't know what's happening. 2 years ago, maybe
Mhm.
three, there was a Super Bowl ad from Google where a woman buys a
Okay.
Conair product. I think it was a curling iron. And
Yeah.
not once does she come into contact with the brand Conair.
Yeah.
That is a different paradigm. And it's all driven by what the buying side wants to see and wants to experience, not what the selling side is telling them what to do.
Yeah.
So if you can get your pitch, we're talking about conversation, a pitch that's based on quantity, that's selling, that pitch is going to come out and sound salesy. But if you shift
Yeah.
it's like a presentation, but if you shift the thinking to get my attention and have a conversation with me,
Mhm.
now you're thinking more on my terms. Like, I want to know, what
Yeah.
do you do first? Then I want to
Yeah.
know who you help. Then I want to know how you solve
Mhm.
their problem. There's an order of information that needs to be conveyed in the conversation. It's not all over the place. It's not based on what's important to me versus what's important to you. It's a collaborative discussion. Although most people will tell you talking with me feels very one sided because I happen to be verbose. However,
Yeah.
um, the challenge is finding what matters to them and catering what you do in a way that it's simple, clear, and consistent. And it's all based
Yeah.
on what the audience sees. That is what drives people in their buying journey. You can't sell until they get to you, you
Yeah.
know, but if you could lead them to water, give them a reason to come back, and keep them in your bloodstream, say with a newsletter, Now you're creating the right relationship. You're giving them a reason to buy
Mhm.
when the time is right. And you probably know
Yeah.
this better than me, but I think it's like 5 to 11
Something
contacts or
like that.
engagements on a newsletter
Yeah.
until they make a purchase. Well, now you've got reminding them of what they need and why they need it all the time. Eventually, they hit the buy button. What I just described to you is 100% from the audience perspective, and it can't be any
Yeah.
different. You don't have a choice but to meet them at that level because they'll just go right around you.
Yeah.
They'll scroll by.
So when someone, engages and starts working with you, um, where what's usually their biggest struggle? Is just not knowing what it is they want to do, or knowing who their client is, or is it a combination of all the above? Or
The initial realization is the fact that they know too much. So
okay.
once we come to terms with that, it's a little easier to sort of find what needs to boil up. And typically I start with two questions. What is your vision for where you want to go? And who is your audience? What are they going through? What's that challenge that you're going to solve? And once we nail those two things down, now we can start to find, all right, we have one insight about the audience. We get their
Mhm.
attention based on their motivation, and on the other side, solve it based on their need state.
Yeah.
That's where we start everything. And every single time, they will spend an hour conversation. They will spend 5 minutes on what I need to hear. I don't cut them off, but 5 minutes on what I need to hear and 25 minutes on their service or product. So I need to dissuade them of that notion. That is not what should come first. I developed a method to approach this, my elevator method. It's how to build your pitch from the ground floor up. And it's
Yeah.
8 floors. It's based on how you ask questions of someone. What do you do? And then
Mhm.
there's a series of questions that come after that. It's predictive, like an FAQ page should be. You can't write it
Yeah.
alphabetically. It's got to be most general, the most specific question your customer would have.
Yeah.
And
Because
getting
those open-ended questions are powerful, because if you ask them in the right way and you listen without thinking what you're going to say next, listen, you can really incorporate your pitch into how you can serve them in a powerful way.
I'm actually talking about predicting what they're going to ask, not what
Yeah.
you're going to ask. Because if the
Right.
first thing they say is, what do? You need to get their attention, and you can't sound like
Yeah.
everybody else. If I own a PR firm and I say I own a PR firm, you know other PR firms. If I say
Yeah.
I make news when it matters, that's exactly the motivation for why a company needs a PR firm. And I haven't said I'm a PR firm yet. I stand
Yeah.
out as completely different. That's what that 3 seconds needs to look like. How you
Yeah.
grab their attention based on what do you do? And they say, what do you mean? Tell me more. Describe what your audience is going through, make them feel it, like it resonates. And then they're going to say, well, how do you help them? That's your solution. Then they want to know, how does your solution work? Not services yet. Fifth floor is services.
Yeah.
Fourth floor is process, beginning to end, what you experience working with me. If you bring your
Mhm.
car to the mechanic, he doesn't say, and I may have told you this already, but he doesn't say, hey, Rob, come on in. I'm going to show you all the tools I have to fix your car. He says, we're going to put it on the lift, tell you what's wrong, get you back on the road. The tools
Yeah.
services are oil change, brake pads, struts. You don't care. I want to give it to you and get it back in working order. Like, that's
Yeah.
what the audience sees. Then the services sound like what you experience through that process, and they're much easier to digest in context. After that, they want to know, what's in it for me, benefits. Can you prove it works? Validation. What do you want me to do next? Call to action.
Yeah.
That order of questions is exactly how you want people to think. And you can control it by giving them the information in the right order. This is about order because we read and we understand stories in order. You can't start on
Yeah.
page 5. If you wrote the book, you could, but you need
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, and 4 to get to 5. And this is something that when you're in your business role and it's your business or your project, there's no way to see it clearly because everything you see is
Yeah.
going to be important.
Yeah. It's a process. That's kind of the same journey I take my clients on as well. It's a process to get from where you're at and where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy to get focused on, it's a process of, I call it, just taking those steps, those action steps. But sometimes it's easy to get focused on step 43 when you haven't even taken step 1. You got to
Yep.
start here to get to step 43. And you just got to keep moving forward, going through that process and just honing it down.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I got to do a quick pitch. This Friday is the virtual Friday whiskey hour. We open the doors at 4:50 p.m. Eastern time. Just go ahead and stop on by, bring your favorite beverage, join the conversation. The conversation starts at 5 o'clock. I'm not sure what we're going to talk about this week, but I always try and make the conversation interesting and lively. We'll just see where it goes this week. I've got a few ideas beating around in my head, but we'll see what happens. Stop by this Friday. I had to pitch. I
No,
had
I
to
love
pitch
the
that.
pitch.
I
You
had to
draw it in
pitch.
with
So
whiskey.
that's right. That's the hook. That's the hook. Some people have asked me about that. Well, they're like, well, I don't drink whiskey. But you know what? The term whiskey to me is a hook. It gets people's attention. Like, wait a minute. Virtual whiskey? What's this? What's this thing? Virtual whiskey. Tell
Yeah,
me more.
there
Tell
you
me
go.
more.
There's
That's the
nothing
key. If you get
virtual
someone to
about
say,
whiskey.
there's not, you're right. It's the real stuff. When you get somebody to say, tell me more, that's the key to go ahead and continue with sharing that information of what you do and how it can serve them in a powerful way.
100%. If they don't ask you to say, tell me, if they don't ask you, tell me more, you've got a bigger problem than you think. Like,
Yeah.
go back to that PR thing. What else would you ask me if I said I own a PR firm? Like, who are your clients? Where are you located? But
Yeah.
you're immediately filling in assumptions based on the fact that I introduced myself as a PR firm. When the real goal is to put an idea in someone's head, right? Go back to what I did for a living as the Hasbro Games guy. I learned all that from the movie Inception with Leo DiCaprio. Everything I know I learned from the movies. And the concept of the movie is going into someone's dream and planting an idea in their head that they can't get rid of. And they explain an idea as being, I'm paraphrasing, but a virus without a cure. There's nothing you can do to extract it when it's in there. They use the example of, don't think of elephants. What are you thinking?
They're thinking of elephants.
And now you can't avoid it. So that's the first thing that needs to happen, is planting that idea in someone's head. And that idea, once they see it and connect to it, they're more likely to stick around. They're more likely to listen to the rest. If the next thing you say is the wrong thing, then your pages are out of order and they're going to hit the back button.
Yeah. And I want to talk about the networking do's and don'ts. I think about the networking. When I first got out of college, after I was no longer the face of Anheuser-Busch getting paid in 2 cases of Budweiser, I needed to go out and get some real money. And you put on my suit and tie and go to these networking events and grease some palms and pass out my resume. And but networking's definitely changed. There's a lot of online networking, and there's still, virtual, or there's still actual networking. I go to, face-to-face networking events. But when you're presenting your pitch, what are the networking do's and don'ts in that environment?
Well, the first thing is to come to terms with the fact that no matter how big the networking group is, whether it's 5 or 45, if you're not one of the 3 that everyone remembers, you're not remembered. Rule of 3, we can only remember 3 things at a time after the age of 25. It's because our brains are full and something comes in, something's got to go at that point. So if we don't grab onto one of those 3 things, we don't remember them very well. And I'm sure anyone who's been on a networking call can relate to that. The second thing is why you're not remembered is because the biggest don't is going through the motions. And again, go back to the business card idea. But going through the motions is, again, just like, I'm going to say what I do and here's who I'm looking for and I look forward to hearing from you. It doesn't resonate with anyone. And think about how many times you're being asked to refer people, the number of networking groups, the number of people we see in a given year, month, week. How are you going to refer everybody? So that's flawed thinking as well. And the last don't is completely over explaining your services. I hear this all of the time. And the reason it happens, again, go back to the beginning of this, everything you do is important. You know how every gear in your solution operates. You know what levers to pull. So you want to explain it. It's just not the right thing to do. I don't care until I care. And if you jump at me with your services for 2 minutes, I'm not going to listen, or I'm certainly not going to remember you. I'll listen politely.
Just listen out of courtesy, but you're
Yeah.
thinking of something else. I've done that. I'm listening out of courtesy, but I'm thinking about what am I having for dinner? Oh my gosh, I got to take the dog for a walk here. What everything else is going through my mind. So,
and on the do's side, listen. First of all, listen to everybody else. You've been to the networking group a couple times, let's say. It's more often than not 80% of the people you've seen before. Listen to what all of them are saying, and you're going to see repetition in certain areas. But a couple are going to stand out as, oh, interesting. I never thought of this that way. That person is providing content of value, not a sales pitch. And that could look like, today I want to tell you guys about this and how to overcome it. Here's my information. If you run into anybody who's got a pitch problem, send them my way. I've given them something of value first, which makes it relevant to me. So, that's second thing you want to make sure you do is exactly how is it relevant to me? Then I'm willing to continue listening because you've just read pages 1 and 2. And as you get into your solution should take 3 seconds to say, right? Your process, describing it and laying it out is 10 seconds. Like there's an architecture to it. And if you follow that architecture, suddenly the people in the room and audiences, despite what we think they're thinking, an audience is binary, on or off, paying attention, not paying attention, listening to you intently, on their phone, checking something. That's what's actually happening. Now, we worry about 1,000 things. Like, what if they don't like my tie? They're not thinking that way. If something clicks with them and grabs their attention, and then the next thing that person says keeps their attention, and the next thing and the next thing, they're like, what happened next? What happened next? That's how you have to follow, because otherwise you can't stand out. So value and their order, their wavelength, just hit them upside the head to get them woken up because they've just listened to 10 pitches that, were bland. You want to make sure they remember you.
Yeah,
so
grab their attention.
Motivation.
Grab their attention.
And the third thing is definitely relating more quickly to who you help and what they're going through. And that's why I say it's get their attention and then do this, because what that will do is seed this tangible idea in their head, and they'll think of it the next time they're looking around. So think of it this way. If I can plant that idea and they hold on to it, then they don't forget me. And that's what it's all about. So to give you an example of how this works and how those first 3 things that it should take 20 seconds to convey, ultimately. I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, but 20 seconds from first to third floor, if you will. The client that I worked with was actually my babysitter when I was 6. And she's a small business and entrepreneurial consultant to operate the business around her client's idea, service, or product. I know 1,000 people who say I'm an entrepreneurial consultant, small business consultant. So where we started was what they're going through. And we landed on a describer word, if you will, chaos. Running your own business is chaos, good or bad. It's nuts. That is subjective to the business owner, right? Just good or bad is subjective enough. So we need to pull them to a point where it's unambiguous and everybody understands the implications. If we say it's chaos, it's like being on a boat in a stormy ocean and holding on tight. Everybody's thinking of the boat and understands the implication of the stormy ocean, being on the stormy ocean. So first floor, to get their attention, they need help. They know that. But what are they going through? Weather the storm of entrepreneurship. Then explain, we know how it feels. It's chaos. It's like being on a boat in a stormy ocean and holding on tight, and you have very little control of the situation. Allow us to navigate you to calm waters with a gentle tail breeze and get your business where it needs to go.
Yeah.
Completely different than a
Oh, it
business
is.
consultant,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah.
And it all revolves around that one idea, that one insight that I can get pinpoint accuracy with what I want people to think and how I want them
Yeah.
to feel, and then take the rug out from under them with the solution.
And we briefly kind of touched on email. And so, I mean, you can obviously you need to pitch what you're doing in email or definitely have a call to action. But is there, do you want to limit it this to a couple of lines of, or how is there a better practice when you're, sending out an email newsletter that provides information with your pitch?
I would say this is exactly the order because, again, people are asking,
Okay.
what do you do? Whether they're looking at your
Right.
LinkedIn profile, getting an email
Okay.
on your homepage, you want that narrative to be the same. But let's say it's an email situation where you are kind of introducing yourself as a human being. It's not just a blanket advertising campaign.
Mhm.
First thing to do is say, here's the issue that I'm solving, right? Like why people need your business. That's first. And I
Okay.
walk them through my process. In fact, I drive them to a free video that lays out my entire, it's 20 minutes, 100% free, and it lays out my entire elevator process, slide by slide, how to do it. That's what I want people to do. And in an email pitch, you need to have a simple sort of lead magnet approach, call to action, because otherwise they won't respond to the email. Hi, I'm Mike. I offer consulting services, and if you're ever interested, give me a call. I ditch probably 60 emails a day that say something like
Yes.
that.
I get save ones. They just go delete, delete, delete.
Yeah,
So,
but
yeah.
imagine if the first thing they read in that subject line is turn your $2,000 revenue into 20,000 with 3 tips on how to email effectively. If that's the first thing I see, I'm like, oh, all right, money and email effectively. What do you mean? Got them where I want them.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
get them to open the email and then keep them there. It's still the same practice as talking to somebody at a networking event.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
difference
That's
is
cool.
accessibility and ease of acquisition. In other words,
Yeah.
I have a free video on how it works. Check it out. You'll learn exactly how to do it. All you got to do is give me your email. Now I have an opt-in email database. Now I have a newsletter audience. And now that conversion process kicks in again. So I look at it as the same thing. It's a question of if they're reading the email, you want to answer their questions in the right order, no different than if they're looking at your website.
Yeah. But it's that hook. It's that subject line hook. You got to
Yep.
hook them there because
Yep.
usually if the subject line sucks, I'm delete, 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 and I think the majority of people are
Absolutely.
just delete, delete, delete. So
Yeah. Are you looking for work in? Do you need this kind of help? That's the headline all the time. Why would I open it? Nope. 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 You told me everything in the headline. But if the person I would use as the gold standard for this kind of stuff for her newsletter is a woman named she's in Croatia or presently in the UK, Dina Kalakovic. She's
okay,
a like top 50 on LinkedIn type of person, but her email
hmm
newsletters, the way she writes them, I open every single one, not just because I know her, but because of what turn $2,000 revenue to $20,000 with these 3 tips on LinkedIn.
yeah,
I'm listening. Like she's the one who comes up with those ideas, and the way she writes the emails is clinical. Copywriting is not an art; it's a science. It's ones and zeros. It's like
yeah,
engineering or
yeah,
coding. So she knows that stuff cold, and she'd be a great person to follow along with.
yeah. Copyright, yeah, copywriting. That's a learned skill, and
But that's the importance in email as well, right?
yeah, right.
You have to control
And a
the
great cop,
conversation without the interaction.
yeah, yeah, and a great copywriter is worth every penny you're paying them. So 100%,
Yep.
100%. So if people want to get in contact with you, the best way is just to reach out to you via email, or is that the best way to get in
Email,
contact
what
with
you
you?
have on the screen works great. The other thing is to just look for Mike Verret on LinkedIn. That's always the easiest
Okay.
way to get in touch with me. And I'd love to meet your audience, and I'll try not to be as verbose when I meet them. But
Oh, no, no, that's fine. You've been great. So, I mean, do you have like who's your favorite kind of industry to work with? Do you have like a favorite industry?
Industry agnostic. It is the
Okay.
same challenge. I don't care if you're selling, packets of Jello or your own fitness program out in Denver somewhere. It's the same challenge that everybody runs into. And to me, it doesn't matter what kind of business it is. I'm able to walk in the audience's shoes, and I can wear a lot of different pairs of shoes and land on these simple, it's logic, human nature, and common sense. Those are three things that go out the window. Now it's
Mm-hmm.
measurement, KPI, whatever, right? So looking at it from that side, it's not that hard to understand how someone's feeling. Go back to the chaos in the boat. That's
Yeah.
one insight that we could focus on that I know the broadest audience is going to listen to. In terms of who I like to work with the most, it is hands down people like me and you. And that is for one simple reason. You go to a big company, or like just use Liberty or Budweiser. How's that? The CEO of Budweiser has all the departments under him, and CMO, CFO, CTO, C blah blah blah, and then they have their departments under them. When you're you
Yeah.
or me, we are the C-suite in all the departments. We're not the CEO. We have to do everything, and that
Yeah.
truly creates the fishbowl effect, the goldfish effect, where we just can't get out of our own way. And the paradox of it is, we look at one of our clients, we could tell them exactly what's wrong and how to fix it, but when it's us, it doesn't work.
Don't worry.
So if I can help people like me get out of their own way, I make a couple tweaks on the back end of what we do, that whether I'm working for a business and charging them out the nose, or I'm working with an entrepreneur and discounting my prices, they would never know the difference, but it speeds things up for me a bit. And I'm able to work with a hell of a lot more people, especially worldwide, internationally,
Yeah.
because of that promise of giving them one way to talk about what they do, but more importantly, helping them realize how much they're carrying around in their head that's just unnecessary.
So do you we kind of touched a little bit on the corporation. Is there one corporation that has their amazing tagline, pitch line, that you're just like, that's it. That's the best one I've ever heard.
I think there are 1,000 different ways you can go with this, because there are so many good lines, but I would like to give you
Yeah.
one from history a little bit. Going back to the pre-McDonald's, pre-da-da-da-da-da days of McDonald's.
Okay.
They operate on, I think it's four, but I'm not going to remember them all, but four pillars, right? And it's
Okay.
value, service, speed, and quality. Okay, let's say those are the four things. Your tagline should emote or elicit feelings along those lines, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
McDonald's looked at it very simply from one angle, from the looking at the customer dead in the eyes. Their tagline was, "We love to see you smile."
Yeah.
And if you're delivering on those four pillars, the promise of that is reinforced for them, where I'm smiling because I got quality, clean, fast, and friendly service. That's what they want. That
Yeah.
makes them smile. We love
Yeah.
to see you smile, so here's what we do. I think that was a brilliant one. You could go back
Yeah.
to examples like the by Menon earworm, by Menon, and all of a sudden you can't. I think in an episode of Seinfeld, because
Where's the Seinfeld? That's it. That's
yeah,
it. Stanza.
yeah. But that's an earworm approach, right?
Yes.
I think Just
Yeah.
Do It is a great embodiment of what Nike
That's it.
represents,
And you hear
where
just do it, you know exactly what we're talking about.
yeah, and the Just Do It represents the Steve Prefontaine story. He was a distance runner,
Yeah.
and Bill Bowerman made him a pair of what ultimately became the Nike Cortez as a
Mm-hmm.
as a famous shoe. But he made them for him, and they would fall apart at almost the exact
Yeah.
distance of the race, But the whole swoosh was attached to the god Nike, and then that's how it all took off. What was unique and why they landed on Just Do It is because Nike's persona is very much about the individual. Whereas if you see a commercial for Adidas or Under Armour, we we must protect this house. It's teams, it's organized. New Balance has the same approach, just more casual. Nike stands out for that just do it mode because they've never strayed from the individual. They're always talking directly to the individual. And it's
have you ever seen the movie Air?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good movie. I mean, it's one of the best. No, but it tells a great story.
It's
a great,
until
just
after that.
Till after Michael Jordan, till after they signed Michael Jordan. Yeah. And it's just a great, I mean, I don't know how. I think there's some levels of truth of really what happened and how they got him to be
without
their main spokesman.
a doubt. But the key to it is understanding that they were fourth in the marketplace. They were behind like Saucony. Adidas was the number one. Converse, that was the other one that was up there. And they were known just as fitness shoes, running shoes. That was it.
Yeah.
So the idea, even in the film, they were talking about whether it's true or not, but the idea of, okay, these are the 4 endorsements we want to go after. And Matt Damon convinces Ben Affleck, no, we need one big dog.
Just one. Just go the big dog.
Yeah. And that just do it mentality is sort of woven into the movie where Matt Damon's whole charge was just do it.
Yeah.
We've got to get this guy at all costs.
Yeah, and for those who've never seen the movie, I think it's on Netflix. Just watch it. It's an hour and a half, but it's well worth. It's actually got some star power. Matt Damon, Ben Affleck.
Affleck portrays Phil Knight better than Phil Knight.
Yeah, and I can't remember who Michael Jordan's mom was. I can't.
Oh shoot.
Viola Davis. She plays Michael Jordan's mom.
That was going to drive
but
me
as far as Michael Jordan, the only thing whatever character played Michael Jordan, the only thing you see is the back of his head, like maybe.
And the only words you hear him speak are "hello."
Yeah, that's it.
At the very end,
they let his mom, Mrs. Jordan, do all the speaking for Michael. So
that actually was based in reality as well, but I can't imagine it was to that level. I think the idea was nobody's going to play Michael Jordan in Michael Jordan's origin story.
No, she was Mama Bear. She took care of her boy.
I mean, the actor, like they weren't going to show any representation of Michael Jordan.
Correct. Yeah. I'm just saying, they portrayed the Viola Davis. She was the Mama Bear, and she's taking care of her little boy. So she was going to watch out for him every step of the way. Yes, she was. Mm-hmm. It's a great movie. I have enjoyed this conversation. Do you have any parting shots before we
parting shots? God.
Parting shots.
I will give you this. I love filling up my calendar and meeting new people. So if any of your audience members are up for it, I'm happy to provide my calendar link, and they could find me on LinkedIn and just reach out.
Yeah.
Because I love just dishing out. If I could give you a little bit of advice on a free call, it's going to help you, and maybe it makes me more memorable. Yeah. That's
it does. You bring value. You bring value. Another way to meet people. Can I tell you another way to meet people, interesting people? It's the virtual Friday whiskey hour this Friday at 4:50 p.m. Eastern time. Go ahead and stop on by. That's when the doors open. The conversation starts at 5 o'clock. Mike, you can attest that it is an interesting conversation. There's no requirement to drink whiskey.
No.
Our buddy Sajad, he doesn't drink whiskey, but he shows up.
Hour.
You
get into some great
it's an interesting hour.
Stuff.
Yes, well, we have some interesting conversation.
I've been to a lot of these types of programs where it's okay, like happy hour or whatever. But the reality is it's not any different than a normal networking event. Whereas you add structure to it and it creates a conversation where people are getting to know each other through the conversation and not just through business card approaches.
Yes. That's what I enjoy about it. That's what I enjoy about it. I just enjoy, I like facilitating groups. I like facilitating conversations. I think I'm kind of good at it, not to be, to be braggadocious, but I've done it for years.
That motion.
I've done it for about 20 years. I've led different groups. I've led different men's groups. My wife and I, we've led groups, and my wife is a fantastic facilitator. So I learn a lot from her on how to facilitate a group. That's what she does a lot of times in her day job, is facilitation. So I've learned a lot from her. But
see, that's far
Mike,
better than me. That's far better than me. I effectively just listen to what's going on and pivot, if you will. I would make a terrible scripted. I would make a terrible scripted actor, but a great improv actor. I could think on my feet and, move in the direction that
Some
it
of the
needs to
best
go.
actors have been improv actors. Robin Williams, he was an amazing improv actor.
Yep.
His best movies, Good Morning Vietnam, they would not nominate him for the best actor because it was 100% improv. He had
Yeah.
no script at all in that movie. No
But
script.
nobody else could have done that because everything came from up there.
Yeah.
I don't work the same way as he does by any stretch. But what I
Yeah.
mean is I react to what I hear, not I'm
Yes.
coming in with a prepared approach. And to be honest, that's how everybody should think about conversations is, don't come in with your hard nosed approach in the same, and, your pitch that you believe works and you're going to hit
Yeah.
your number. You
You
got
got
to
to
come in at
adjust.
the right level and it's on their level.
Yeah, you got to adjust.
Yeah.
I apply the KISS method. Just keep it simple, stupid. So, speak to your audience.
I
Speak to
had
your
somebody
audience. Don't.
I had somebody tell me, remember this, less is more. And then he goes,
Yes.
LESISMOR. He dropped the S and the E. Less is
Yeah,
more.
when I was in the army, I was an army officer, and I'd have to brief my commanders. And I had this one commander. I took his advice. He said, "When you have to stand up and be brief and be gone, and that's it. Be
Yep.
brief and be gone,
It's in the
because that's how
damn
you make the
word
best impression.
description itself is what you're supposed to do.
Be brief, be
Be
brief,
brief.
and be gone." So, well,
Yep.
hey, Mike, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I have enjoyed those who stopped by for the Imperfect Action live stream. Next Wednesday will be my next one. I'm literally looking forward to that conversation as well. Stop by with that Wednesday at 2 o'clock. But Mike, I appreciate you stopping by. I appreciate this conversation. I know you've definitely brought some value, brought the juice, and I know our audience loved that. I loved it as well. But hey, let's make this a great day. Peace out.
Thank you, Rob.